family and internet strangers, Stephanie here, and welcome back to Vlogmas. Today we are taking a look back at my 5 favorite things I made this year on this channel. So I will have all of the recipes for these things linked in the description box down below to the videos that they were featured in originally, but these are my 5 favorites from 2022. Let's get into it. First up, we're throwing it back to May when I made this one pot green chili chicken. This is a keto recipe and it was so good that I wished I had made more. It is very easy and so few dishes. I love these one pot meals. So you start out with butter, garlic, and a jalapeno, and then once that has sauteed for a little bit, you add in some cream cheese, some heavy cream. The recipe also calls for almond milk, but I used entirely heavy cream because I didn't have any almond milk on hand, so I was going with what I had. Also, you're then going to add your green chilies, your shredded cheese, and then once that's all melted in, you add chicken. So my proportions were off when I made this. This has less chicken, but the same amount of everything else. And honestly, it worked out really well that way because I like things to be very saucy. So I had more sauce with less chicken, and I wish that I had made just so much of this because the proportions that I made, I only had 2 meals out of this, but this was one that reheated really well, and I actually enjoyed the leftovers of this one. So I do highly recommend giving this one a try. You could use this as a dip, you could stuff this into a burrito, or you could just eat it plain like I did. It would also be great over rice. Next up, French onion pork chops and garlic Parmesan rice. So I love pretty much anything French onion, so these pork chops were so good. I start out by sauteing my onions and I add a little bit of beef stock to them while I'm sauteing them so that they get some of that flavor while they are getting nice and caramelized. And then for my rice, I'm starting out with butter, adding a little bit of garlic to it, sauteing that so that my garlic is nice and fragrant, and then adding my rice first, letting the rice toast up a little bit, then adding milk and water, and then some chicken bouillon, some pepper, and then letting that start to come up to a boil. Meanwhile, for my pork chops, I am going to remove my onions from the pan and then add my pork into that same pan and cook that. And the pork is seasoned with some salt, some pepper, a little bit of garlic powder, and then once those get nice and cooked, I will add my onions back in, take my pork out, and then make that sauce into more of a gravy type consistency by adding a little bit of flour and then a little bit more of the beef stock to this to make a really nice French onion sauce to go over my pork chops. So once that flour starts to cook out, I add that beef stock back in. I use the Better Than Bouillon beef base and get all of that combined nice and well. And then I'm going to put my pork chops right back into that sauce. I am going to add a little bit of pepper, a little bit of thyme. Those are the seasonings that I like to add when I do anything French onion based. And there was enough salt in the beef stock that I did not need to add any salt to this. And then once I've got my pork chops nice and coated in that sauce, I'm going to put some cheese on top. You could do provolone, you could do Swiss. I had provolone on hand, and then I also put a little bit of Swiss on top of that. And then I put the lid on there, put it in the broiler. After it had melted for a little bit, I took the top off and put it in the broiler. Then into my rice goes some spinach and some Parmesan cheese, and this is the finished product. So tasty. I served it with asparagus, and this is a meal I will definitely make again. The only change I'll make, thicker pork chops. I only had the thin ones on hand. Next up is something really simple. It was this sausage and pepper flatbread. And in general, all of the recipes I made in my sausage and pepper video were so good. So this video was a summer recipe collab, and this is something my dad made for pretty much any party or picnic we hosted or went to and were bringing food. We always had sausage and peppers at big events. So it's really easy to make, but so tasty. So you just take your peppers and onions and mix them all together in a baking dish. Add garlic powder and water and sausage on top and let it bake until everything is done. And putting foil over the top lets it all steam so the sausage stays really moist and those peppers and onions get really soft. So I had in the video made this with my leftovers being used in multiple different ways, but this was my favorite of the ways. So this was a flatbread, a pre-made flatbread that I got from Aldi, my homemade sauce, and I will have that video linked below as well because I do love making my own sauce. And then I had sliced mozzarella instead of shredded. You could use shredded, but sliced worked out really well for me, and it's what I had on hand. And then this sausage, I just sliced it right up and layered it in an even layer on the top with a good mixture of onions and peppers. I put this in the air fryer until the cheese was all melty and the crust was nice and toasty. And I cannot describe how good this was. And I will definitely be doing this now anytime I make those sausage and peppers because it was such a great way to use the leftovers. This one shows it does not need to be fancy to be good. This, yes, did make it into my top 5 favorite things that I made at home this year, and it is so simple. I made Kraft mac and cheese. I added a slice of American cheese, just plain old sliced American cheese, in with it. I used heavy cream instead of milk, which wasn't even planned. That was just because my milk had gone bad. So this totally came together, spur of the moment, and it ended up being one of my favorite meals. So Kraft mac and cheese is my favorite, but you could use whatever mac and cheese it is that you enjoy. And I simply followed the packet instructions and then added that cheese. And then the heavy cream, I think helped, but it wasn't necessary. My chili I had in the freezer that I had made, and I can link that video below in the description box as well. And I simply layered it with a little bit of shredded taco cheese and some red onion on top. And it was so tasty that it stuck with me and immediately came to mind when I was deciding what to put in this video. And then, of course, the winner of the year. This was hands down my favorite thing that I made in 2022, and it's another one that I made on a whim. This was not a planned dinner. This was I went to the grocery store and chicken was on sale at the reduced price. And I said, you know what? I have a bunch of stuff in my fridge that I need to use up, and it would go well with chicken. So I seasoned my chicken really well with salt, pepper, garlic powder. I also put on there some Italian seasoning, and then I browned it on each side and finished it off by baking it so that it would stay nice and moist with that crispy outside from sauteing it. Next up for my sauce, this was another just winging it recipe that turned out perfect. I started with butter. I added a little bit of garlic. Once it was fragrant, I added spinach and stirred that up until it was wilted down. And this was to use up spinach before I went on vacation. Seasoned it with salt, pepper, garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder, and a little bit of Italian seasoning. And the seasonings, just, it was the perfect mixture. And I didn't measure anything when I was making it, but this is a great one to try and make and season to taste. And then I added heavy whipping cream to make a bit of a sauce and some Parmesan cheese to thicken it up and give it that nice cheesy, salty flavor to my sauce. I boiled some spaghetti and then I put the spaghetti right into that pasta sauce. Spaghetti was the pasta I had on hand, but again, you could use a multitude of different things to try this one out and make it your own. And then once I did that, I saw if I needed any pasta water, but bringing the pasta directly from the water into the sauce, it was fine. It did not need any added, but I would recommend having a little bit of that pasta water just in case you do need it. I sliced up my chicken on an angle to make it all nice and fancy, and this was hands down favorite meal of 2022. Thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and if you did, I hope you give it a thumbs up and then hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so you don't miss any more content. Please let me know in the comment section, what is your favorite thing that I made this year on my channel? I would love to know. And is there anything in particular that you'd like to see me make in 2023? Let me know that as well. Thanks so much for watching.
My friends and family, making angels in the sand.